Hi, on my road trip in Houston. I know, But, I love sports, not just the Astros. I like the Blues, the Panthers, the Warriors, and about 120 other teams, but not right this second. Right now, again, it's just the Blues, the Warriors, the Panthers, and the Astros. Today I'm talking about St. Louis Blues. Okay, so sometimes a guy gets hot, and sometimes the other team happens to be standing in the exact wrong place when he does. This is Blue 26, Chris Stewart, December 21st, 2013. St. Louis Blues, Edmonton Oilers. And Edmonton's about to have a very long night. The Blues come into Rexall Place at 23-7-4. So they're not a team trying to figure out whether they're good. They're pretty good. Hey, Twister Tamers. Ken Hitchcock has them sitting second in the Central, chasing Chicago, and they're coming off a 5-1 win over Montreal. Alexander Steen is having the season of his life. David Backes is back after missing 2 games. TJ Oshie, Alex Pietrangelo, and a young Jaden Schwartz are all part of a team that looks built to make noise in the spring. Edmonton, 11 wins, 23 losses. 5 straight defeats. They're already drifting out of the playoff conversation even before Christmas. So what are you thinking if you're an Oilers fan? At what point in a season like this do you quit looking at the standings and just start looking for signs that the young guys are, maybe starting to get a little better? Because Edmonton had Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, and Wright Nugent-Hopkins. That's real talent. There just weren't very many wins. And there's one other wrinkle. This is the first Blues-Oilers meeting since St. Louis traded David Perron to Edmonton for Magnus Paajarvi and a second-round pick. So, Perron's playing his old team. Paajarvi's also playing his old team. And that matters just a little bit later. But today, we're here for Chris Stewart. Hello, elevator has guy rail 3666. Stewart's from the Toronto area, and his road to the NHL was anything but automatic. Hey, Asteroid Destroyer. His older brother Anthony was the hockey prospect in the family. Chris actually stepped away from hockey as a teenager and leaned towards football. Anthony eventually convinced him to give hockey one more shot. Then he went to the Kingston Frontenacs and basically vouched for his little bro. Chris wasn't drafted into the OHL. He had to walk on, and he made the team. He went from walk-on to 87 points in just his second OHL season. And frankly, that's a hell of a jump. Colorado took him 18th overall in the 2006 NHL draft, and he captained Kingston the next season, spent a year developing in the AHL, and reached the Avalanche in 2008. By 2009-10, Stewart had 28 goals and 64 points. Big winger, right shot, 6'2", well over 230 pounds. He could score, he'd hit you, and he wasn't shy about dropping the gloves. Basically, if you're designing the old school version of an NHL power forward in a lab, Chris Stewart was pretty close to what you were designing. Colorado traded him to St. Louis in February 2011, along with Kevin Shattenkirk. The Avalanche got Eric Johnson as the centerpiece going the other way, and Stewart went nuts. 15 goals in 26 games after arriving in St. Louis. And then, he had a frustrating 2011-12, 15 goals in 79 games. Ugh, not good. But in the lockout-shortened 2012-13 season, he bounced back. 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points in just 48 games. He led the Blues in both points and goals. Hey, Diego, I don't know the Fearless Funk song. What's up, Diego? So St. Louis gave him a 2-year contract that summer, and that brings us right here. December 2013. Stewart's been quiet for most of the season. Then somebody flipped the switch. Hello, Quinonelli. He scored twice against Ottawa on December 16th. He scored against Montreal 3 days later. By the time the Blues arrive in Edmonton, Stewart has 5 goals in his prior 5 games. That becomes important fairly quickly. And here's the funny part about a game that ends 6-0. Edmonton started better. The Oilers took 10 of the first 11 shots. Brian Elliott is working. St. Louis is generating nothing. What are they generating? Nothing. They're not generating much of anything. Then Ilya Bryzgalov comes charging out of the Edmonton net, trying to deal with a loose puck. But he can't get it cleared. Jaden Schwartz gets possession. Karina. Who's Karina? I'd love to hear some Karina. Jaden Schwartz got possession, and Chris Stewart is standing on the other side with a whole bunch of empty net available. At 11:57 of the first, 1-0 Blues. So let me throw this one at you. When a goalie makes a mistake this bad, how much credit are you going to give the scorer? Stewart still has to get himself to the right spot. Schwartz still has to find him. But Bryzgalov pretty much gift wraps the entire thing. So Edmonton outplayed St. Louis for most of the period, but they're losing anyways. It's kind of the season they're having. Second period, Stewart helps create the next one. Brendan Morrow sends it to Derek Raw. Raw finds Stewart. Stewart sends it back towards Morrow in front. Morrow finishes it through Bryzgalov. 2-0. Stewart's already got a goal and an assist, and around these parts, Alexander Steen leaves the game with an upper body injury. It eventually got diagnosed as a concussion, costing the Blues their leading scorer for several games. So maybe this game isn't quite the uncomplicated party that it looks like. Except, not tonight. Tonight, they're going to bury Edmonton. Third period, 1 minute 46 seconds, Stewart, again, 3-0. 52 seconds later, Jaden Schwartz scores, 4-0. So this thing has gone from competitive to somebody find the bus in less than 3 minutes. Then Edmonton takes a penalty, and at 7:27, Stewart scores on a power play. Hat trick. Hey, hat trick. Third hat trick of his NHL career, and his first as a St. Louis Blue. The Hats hit the ice in Edmonton for the visitor. Honestly, that's one of my favorite little things about hockey. I don't care whose building you're in. 3 goals is 3 goals. Tradition takes over. Never throw your good hat. Always take a spare hat to a hockey game. Just saying. Patrick Berglund adds another later in the period. St. Louis walks out with a 6-0 win. Stewart, 3 goals, 1 assist. Brian Elliott, 23 saves and a shutout. The Stewart-Morrow line combines for 7 points. And Edmonton got booed off their own ice. But do you remember that Perron-Pajari trade? Perron spends the evening playing against the Blues for the first time and gets hit with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Pajari, meanwhile, gets an assist against his former team. So in the first meeting after the trade, St. Louis wins 6-0. The guy Edmonton traded away contributes, and the guy Edmonton traded for got a penalty. One of those nights where the transaction page itself seems to be trolling you. And I'm curious, if you're a Blues fan, how did you feel about that Perron trade? Because Perron could play. This wasn't some guy who nobody cared about losing. Afterward, most of the really interesting quotes came from the Edmonton locker room. Oilers coach Dallas Eakins kept his players in a long post-game meeting, and unloaded. He said he was tired of the team's repeated mistakes and described them as seeming to almost embrace their own misery. Brizgalov didn't dodge responsibility either. His assessment was pretty simple. He hadn't been good enough. Edmonton had lost 6 in a row. They'd been shut out 6 times already that season. Thank you, John. I've been working on it for about 6 months. And including 3 shutouts in the last 5 games. Meanwhile, St. Louis was 24-7-4. Stewart's heater was now 8 goals in 6 games. 2 days later, the NHL named him its first Star of the Week. 6 goals and assists, just 4 games. Sidney Crosby was the second star. Hey, that's a decent week. But here's where Stewart's Blues story takes a turn. He doesn't stay in St. Louis long enough to see how this season ends. On February 28th, the Blues go all in. Chris Stewart, Yaroslav Halak, prospect William Carrier, first-round pick, and another conditional pick go to Buffalo. St. Louis gets Ryan Miller and Steve Ott. So, if you're sitting there on December 21st watching Stewart score a hat trick, you're watching a guy who's going to be traded just 69 days later. Would you have made that trade? Because Ryan Miller was one of the biggest names available, and the Blues are trying to win the Stanley Cup right now. Stewart leaves St. Louis with 15 goals and 26 points in 58 games that season. The Blues finish 52-23-7 with 111 points. Then the ending hurts. They lose their final six in a row. Regular season games. They draw the defending champion Chicago Blackhawks in the first round. They win the first 2 games, then they lose 4 straight. Chicago takes the series in 6. 111 points, and you're golfing before April's even over. Hockey can be mean. It's like kissing your sister. Stewart's career keeps moving. Hello, Venor. Buffalo, Minnesota, Anaheim, back to Minnesota, Calgary. Eventually, he spends time in Europe, comes back and gets one final NHL run with Philadelphia 2019-2020. When he's finished, the numbers read 668 games, 160 goals, 162 assists. That's 322 points. And that's not bad for a kid who stopped playing hockey, wasn't drafted into the OHL, and needed his big brother to talk somebody into giving him just a tryout. And Stewart didn't disappear from hockey after he retired. He joined the Flyers player development staff in 2020, and he's still listed in that department today. He's also one of the founding members of the Hockey Diversity Alliance. So, the walk-on eventually became the guy helping the next generation figure out how to make it. And that's a pretty good circle. For Blue 26, we catch him right in the middle of one of the hottest stretches of his career. Chris Stewart, 3 goals, 4 points, a 6-0 road win, December 21st, 2013. Next time we're switching sports again. Panther 8 takes us to October 9th, 2022, and rookie left tackle Ikem Ekwonu. The Panthers are 1-3. Matt Rule's seat, not just a hot seat. Carolina gets the San Francisco 49ers at home. For Ekwonu, it's another early test in what Carolina hopes will be a very long answer. Left tackle. But we'll get into that one next. In the meantime, I'm Kevin. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for your comments and your little reactions. I appreciate everything. Why don't you like and subscribe while you're at it, because hey, I'm not stopping. I'm going to do this till I'm dead. I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm just having a good time here. So Live from Houston. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.